You may have noticed over the last couple of weeks in my videos that I can be seen wearing this very ring, and it is not just any old ring. In fact, this is a smart ring. This is the RingConn Gen 2. I do think that smart rings are about to kind of have their moment as the Galaxy ring has just been announced. You're going to see more and more of these things. So I was pretty excited to get to test this thing out. As you can see, we are on the Kickstarter page. It has been funded by many times over, and you do have a time of recording about 26 days. Let's scroll down and let you see what the prices are, because that's always important. So right now you can pledge $209, and that's going to basically get you the ring, which is normally $299. So keep that in mind. This is normally a $300 package. It's back up, and we will go over some of the specs that they list. Really solid battery life here, 10 to 12 days, and that's something I can absolutely verify. It is very thin and very light. It does work on iOS or Android. We're going to be looking at the application very closely as well, but I think we should start off by looking at the ring itself as well as the charging case that it comes with. So I have the matte black version, and as you can see inside, that's where all those sensors are housed. There are these two little bumps, and you want to line it up so those bumps are on the bottom side of your hand, just like that. When you buy it, they will send you a sizing kit, which will, help you get the correct size. And then you can see two little magnetic connectors, and that's how it charges inside the charging case. It is very thin, and it is very light. Now for me, I'm quite skinny, so when I wear the thing, if I try to like close my fingers, you can see it kind of goes diagonal. If it's like this, you can see there's like a large space. Maybe if you have like thicker fingers, meatier fingers, maybe that's less of a problem. For me, even with the thinness that this thing has, it did sort of get in the way. It's a little bit thicker than a normal ring, I feel like would be. I just really don't like wearing a ring in general for reasons like this. I just find them to be extremely uncomfortable, and that's going to be true of this ring as much as it is with really any other ring. This is the charging case. It charges over USB-C, and then whenever you're done wearing your ring or you need to charge it, which is really going to be what it is because you're meant to wear it 24/7 even while you're sleeping, you just drop it in here. And this thing is meant to get you an additional 150 days worth of a charge. That is an insane figure. And I mean, evidently that's it. Obviously, I've not tested it for 150 days to verify this, but that is your charging case. I will say that it charges the ring quite slowly. Like it might take like several hours to fully charge the ring, but you're only going to need to do that about every 2 weeks, every 10 to 12 days. We've got this little GIF image here that shows 2 millimeters, and it's somewhere between 2 and 3 grams depending on the size that you get. So yes, it is indeed very thin and very light. But how does this thing actually perform? I think the simplest way to do this is to pull up the application, and we're going to compare the RingConn app. First, I've just looked at the application, but then we're going to actually side by side it with my Fitbit app because I've been wearing a Pixel Watch 2 the exact same time, so we can kind of compare how the data has been tracked on both. One thing that I really quickly want to mention is something that I tested and brought up in my first impressions video. If you're like me and you switch phones all the time, like I'm constantly moving my SIM back and forth, you want to be able to move this ring with you. It's really simple. All you got to do is install the application, and when you log in, it's going to sync that data, and it's going to grab that ring, pair, connect, and you're going to be off and running in normally like 10 or 15 seconds. There you go. So unlike a smartwatch that might need to be reset, obviously the Pixel Watch doesn't need to be reset, it can be transferred. This is even simpler than that. Sign into the app and you're done. Okay, so here is the RingConn application. You can see up here at the top this wellness balance section. I actually really like this because it basically fills out this diamond shape, this square turned sideways, depending upon what you've done. So what's your activity level, your vital signs, sleep, and then your stress management. It fills that out based upon those metrics, and it will overlay the prior day as well, so you can kind of see where you were that day versus the day before. If you scroll down, it's fairly basic, right? Like there's not a whole lot on this application, but what it does, I think it does pretty well. So there's sleep, activity, there's stress, there's heart, and then there is your sleep apnea testing as well, which we will get into. There's also this health timeline at the bottom where you can add notes, and it's also just going to kind of add things in there that have happened throughout your day. Let me switch my phone over to dark mode. I think the application will probably film a bit better. Yeah, it looks a little bit better on film that way. So let's just go through these, right? And again, like I said, we're going to do this in a comparative sense with the Fitbit app so we can see how the data has been tracked on both. And so let's go into sleep for August the 17th. We'll pull that up on both, and we'll look at how both of these two applications handle that. So first off, I'll just say that I find my Pixel Watch to be very accurate in pretty much all of these things, whether it's the health tracking, it's blood oxygen, it's your heart rate, it's sleeping. It is a very accurate device, so I think we have a good place to start here. So in terms of total time of sleep, they were very, very similar, right? So 7.5 hours, 7 hours, and 12 minutes. I think that is very, very close. If we look at our sleep stages, again, I think that they look quite similar. You can see the Fitbit application, my Pixel Watch, is showing a bit more motion, a bit more awake time in the middle than the RingConn was. And I am a pretty light sleeper and I don't sleep particularly well, so I do tend to think that that is probably more accurate. We may be missing some waking time, some movement with the Ring for whatever reason. And if we go to the benchmark where we're seeing the different kinds of sleep, again, it's close, but it's not quite the same. So the Pixel Watch is definitely picking up more of those awake times than the RingConn was. Again, though, with sleep tracking, this is one of those things where none of them are going to be perfectly accurate, and I do feel like, for the most part, the RingConn is still close enough to allow you to sort of keep a log of how your sleep has been. Now, I also want to point out that you can actually rate how you felt that day, and that's going to help just as much as anything. The fact that you can go in and say, now that was about a 5 for me, I feel pretty normal. That's, to me, the point of sleep tracking, is to be able to look back and see, how have I been sleeping? Do I need to change some habits? Because you may not remember, 2-3 days later that, hey, I've actually not slept that well in a few days. It might kind of slip your mind, but now you're going to have a log with that. And I think that the sleep tracking is good enough for that. I'll also point out that it does keep your heart rate and your HRV, as well as your blood oxygen, skin temperature, all of that stuff, respiratory rate. It's all available on that one screen, and I really like the way that they map this stuff out. Whereas on the Fitbit, if you wanted to see that same stuff, you're going to have to go to that appropriate page for that data. I like the way that the RingConn app puts everything there. For step tracking, I think that they both look pretty good. Now, keep in mind that the RingConn has a few more steps because I had to charge my Pixel Watch and I didn't have to charge my Ring. It's a big advantage. So the idea that I took 250 some odd steps in that time frame, I think makes total sense. These two tend to be very, very close to me. Once again, though, the Fitbit app just going to show you the steps on this screen, whereas this is going to show you my calories. It's going to show my standing time, my activity intensity level, which I really like how that is mapped out. The ratio for those intensity levels, I think, is quite good. If I had tracked an exercise, it would show up there as well. Lots and lots of data. And I got to point this out. There's no subscription for this app at time of recording. Hopefully that doesn't change. But right now, no subscription and a lot of data. I should point out, though, on the Fitbit, you do get a lot of these same things, but you have to go into each one of those categories, whereas with the RingConn app, they just kind of put everything together, and I like that. Let's take a look at the heart rate, and we will select that same day, which was the 17th. And it does look to me like there's a little bit more variation. I have some sharper peaks more often on the Fitbit than I did with the RingConn Ring. And we're going to talk about this a bit more in the exercise portion, but it does seem to me like occasionally the heart rate gets a little bit weird. And it may be that the Ring is sort of moving around a little bit, or maybe I'm holding something and that's throwing it off. Not exactly sure. It's still pretty good, but I do think that my Pixel Watch was handling the heart rate tracking a little bit better. Once again, that's it for the Fitbit application over here. They put SpO2 right there. Heart rate variability is right there as well. You can change between 5-minute and 30 minutes to get sort of a more granular view or a broader overview. Same thing with the SpO2. How specific do you want to get? I really like all the options. I'll quickly point out this sleep apnea testing. So you actually have to manually start this. For sleep tracking, you just wear it in sleep. To track the sleep apnea thing, where it's actually supposed to be able to pick up if you have sleep apnea, you need to fire this up and go into start monitoring. You can see where I did it, and of course it picked up that I do not have sleep apnea. I'm not going to use it any more than that, but it is there. It's an option, and they claim that it's fairly accurate. So this is a walk I tracked on both. There is a GPS map I've scrolled up away from it so that you can't basically figure out where I live, but they both did a really good job. Now for GPS tracking, the Ring's going to use your phone, whereas the watch has the ability to connect to a GPS satellite by itself, but even still, using your phone, it's going to be just fine. You just got to have your phone with you. But again, they both did a pretty good job. You can see here that the timing was pretty much the same because I started them and ended them about the same time. We can dig into the other metrics. When it comes to workouts, and we're going to talk about this a bit more in another way, I think that the RingConn has still a long ways to go. This is pretty much all you're going to get. Come over here to the Pixel Watch, and there is a whole lot more data. You can kind of see here how this data may differ one to the other. The calories are definitely different, but I think that actual workout tracking is a pretty big weakness with this thing. They say that they're working on adding more modes, but right now you come into the app, you click that little circle in the bottom right, and these are the only options that you have. When these additional options are going to arrive, I don't know, but once they do arrive, I'd love to see a whole lot more data in the actual workout records than what we have now. Personally, I don't find the stress tracking on really many of these devices to be particularly useful, but if you do, you can see the sort of data that you have there. And it's kind of what makes the workout thing a little bit strange to me, is there's so much data in most sections that it's odd to me how sparse the workout section is. And let me just give you another example here. So one of the primary ways that I work out is I play a boxing game in VR. And one thing that I definitely did notice, and actually I think I can pull this up for you. Yeah, I posted some screenshots. So I did my VR boxing, and since I don't have an option for anything other than like indoor running, that's what I selected, and it just doesn't really do a great job here. So one, it's trying to track distance. Obviously, I'm not moving anywhere. Second, I'm holding a controller, and I think that that messed up the heart rate, because you can see your average heart rate of 112 versus average of 87. It seems like it really got the heart rate wrong, and maybe that's because I'm holding something. Not exactly sure. In other workouts where I'm walking and things like that, the heart rate was at least pretty similar. For this, things got really far off, so we need some other workout modes pretty badly. For me, my biggest problem with this thing is honestly just a categorical problem. You have to understand if this device is for you or not, right? Because smart rings are going to be for a very specific subset of people. And what I've learned through using this is I'm just not one of those people, and I'll explain why. For me, I put this thing on, and what is it going to do? It's going to track my health. It's going to track a lot of my health metrics really, really well. But I already find it necessary to wear a smartwatch so I can see my notifications and things like that right there on my wrist. And guess what? My smartwatch also does all of those things, and in my opinion, it might do a lot of them better than the Ring. I have to charge this more than I do the Ring, and that's obviously an advantage. But I have two things that are tracking all of these things, and this one gives me notifications, which means I'm just going to default to this one. You may think I'm crazy, and this would be a big change to the smart ring category. But in my mind, the only way that I would be able to wear this thing is if I could then get rid of the smartwatch. So I need something. Maybe it's not a vibration motor, but look, put like a little LED on the top of the ring or something. Let me like color categorize it. So if it's green, I have an email. If it's red, I have a text message, whatever it might be. And I can be doing something and I can see that I have a notification. That might allow me to stop wearing the smartwatch and just wear the smart ring. For me, for now, since I find the smartwatch necessary, it's hard for me to justify wearing both of these things, right? But your mileage may vary on that point. If you want a smart ring and you don't wear a smartwatch, how well does this thing do? I think by and large, it does what it says it's going to do pretty darn well. There are only a few weaknesses here and there for it. I would definitely love to see some improvements in terms of the workout tracking. I want to see more data in there, and I do also want to see, like, we need like 15 more workouts minimum, right? We need to have all sorts of different workouts in there. I don't know how you account for the fact that if it's something where you're making a fist or you're holding on to something, that might be throwing off your heart rate tracking, but that's definitely something that you can kind of work around to some degree. But lots of other things are great, like the battery life. They say 10 to 12 days. Yeah, that is absolutely what I'm getting. The battery life is absolutely phenomenal. You just wear it and forget that you have it on. I'm sure that if I were a little bit less skinny, it'd probably be even more comfortable, but I could have handled it if I had some way to stop wearing the smartwatch. It is very light. It is quite comfortable. So, guys, that's kind of where I'm at. If you want a smartwatch and you know what a smartwatch is and what it does and what it's for, I think that this thing is pretty solid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a link to this Kickstarter page in the description down below. You can go back it if you want to. If you're going to buy this thing, do it through Kickstarter because you're going to save yourself some money by doing that. I do want to give a shout out and a thanks to RingConn for sending it over for me to review. As with all of my actual reviews, no money has exchanged hands. No input was given by RingConn to tell me what I can say or what I can't say. They're going to see this review at the exact same time as everyone else. So guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, drop them in those comments and I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.